But yeah, so that gives you an idea. Now, we think that those costs seem high. We'll go to the McLaren, okay? The McLaren, some people are just gonna jaw drop. 60 laps on a set of pads, $3,250 for a set of pads for the front, okay? €54 a lap that we look at for brake pads just on the McLaren on the front.
€54 a lap.
Front discs, between 5,500 and 6,000 for a set of front discs. We get 450 laps out of them. That's our saving grace, okay? Because we get so many of these carbon ceramic discs are very robust. So that brings us down to €12 per lap. If you look at the M3, this is really interesting. The M3 front discs are somewhere around, with the hat and everything, somewhere around €15 to €17 per lap. The McLaren actually has cheaper front discs than this car, okay? But that then comes down to weight and the fact they're carbon ceramic. But don't worry, the pads more than take care of it for the McLaren, right? Then we go to rear pads. We're getting 120 laps out of a set of rear pads. And we're looking at about 2,000 to €2,400 for a set of pads, depending on what we get. So we're looking at €16 a lap. Now this is my favorite number of all these cars, rear discs, 1,200 laps. Okay, we have a carbon ceramic disc. It's fantastic operation. 1,200 laps that we can get out of a set of rear discs.
Basically one season.
One season, so we're talking €4 per lap. I'm happy, okay? Tires, this is another painful one. 65 laps out of a set of tires, all right? We're looking at 1,700 to 1,900 depending on where we get the tires at the time. And so you're looking at €26 per lap just in tires on the McLaren. Oil changes every 125 laps again. We're looking at €2 per lap for that. Gearbox oil, again, €3 per lap. Diff fluid, €1 per lap. Brake fluid, €1 per lap. Fuel, a little bit more than the M3. It's making, the 720 is making close to 800 horsepower. Everybody knows that, right? So that car is looking at about €20 per lap. That gives us somewhere around €140 per lap on average, just operation costs.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of that has to do with €54 per lap brake pad costs, right? So our fixed costs, I look at the McLarens at somewhere around €36,000 a year. And I think if anybody knows about a McLaren and if it was run like that, it's probably a little bit higher, but that's how I value it. Miscellaneous repairs and updates, insurance, etc. Then I do the same €115,000 for employees, drivers, and license, because we split the license between the two cars, we split the employees between the two cars. What employees do we have to calculate? We have to calculate Ring Kathy running the taxi coordination. We have to calculate Misha's marketing, Misha's taxi lap sales, right? We have to calculate the drivers. We have Bruno, we have Tom. Tom's standing right here making a video. This is part of our costs, our labor costs. We've got Diana running the bookkeeping, keeping the book straight, writing invoices. We've got Bruno answering tickets. We've got Bruno talking to customers, taking pictures. All this stuff is a part of it. So we have to sit down. I sat down and looked at how much time from each person is invested in the taxi program and taken a portion of their pay and applied it to the taxi costs. Because if we didn't have the taxi, we absolutely would not need as many employees, right? So we have to look at all of this as a certain part of the cost.
Just a comparison, the first year we ended up having like roughly 4 people full-time working at Apex, and last year was around, when we started the taxi, was around 12 to 13.
So we really increased the number of people because the belief is that we need to have a presence, we need to take care of the customer, we need to make a smooth, efficient transition, people in and out of the cars, bookkeeping, etc. So it really brings up the cost. So you can say that with our fixed costs, licenses, etc., that we're at on this car, this car being the McLaren, $162,000 a year before we've started the engine. Okay, so if we do 1,100 laps in the McLaren, which is a realistic number, okay, if we do 1,100 laps in the McLaren, the income at $299 a lap would be €329,000 including tax, and the expenses are €315,000. This is a lot of product, a lot of personnel, a lot of machinery, maintenance updates for a €14,000 profit. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Very few companies would say I'm going to invest €315,000 or €330,000.
For return on investment of like what? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
Then the question comes in to be, how do we improve this, right? How do we take our numbers and improve them? We do that through partnerships. We do that through parts supply chain, through efficiency within our workforce. So as our team gets more efficient, we can have less personnel. Last year we had people that would come in to help on part-time basis, right? And as the personnel gets more efficient, then that means that we can reduce the number of people that are at the taxi office and inherently increase the number of people that are working sales at Apex or the media office, we can get them back to what could be their normal job, right? And improve that way. So those are ways that we can improve. I think everybody knows now that we're running Nankang tires, right?
Yeah.
Well, Nankang is a good partner for us. We don't run Nankang because we have a partnership. We run Nankang because it's a good tire, and that's a prerequisite to working with us, is that it has to be a good product. One thing that I can say is that anybody can go online and look at the price of a Pirelli Corsa versus a Nankang AR1, and to be honest with you, the AR1 is a better tire than a Corsa, so we're going to be happily run that. That's going to take our tire costs down, where we might be putting a set of tires on a car every week. Now that's going to take our cost down on the McLaren, potentially 800 to 1,000 euro a week just in tires, depending on what we're comparing to, Trofeo, Corsa to the Nankang. Then you take this car, and we're going to also do the same thing. We're going to get rid of the Michelin, and we're going to run the Nankang. Well, that's going to probably save us 300 to 400 euro a week just on tires. I'm excited for everybody to see that this car is actually going to be faster on the Nankang tire, and it's going to save us money. So now we're able to make a partnership that it gives us better performance and saves us money. It's a no-brainer, right? Brake discs. What do we do to save money on brake discs? On the McLaren, there's not a whole lot you can do. That car, we want to run it as the stock setup, the stock brakes. That's important for us. It's a very expensive car, very fast car, and we're taking passengers in it, so we need to have products on it that are proven, tested by McLaren, and has that support. So we keep that. But on this car, for example, we've gone from, with this new ring system, with the new braking, we've actually gone from the 32 millimeter disc up to a 35 millimeter disc. And whereas we were getting maybe 80 laps out of a set of discs before, we're over 100 to 120 now, because it's a thicker disc. It works the heat better, right? And so the disc lasts longer. Then in addition to that, we put proper brake cooling on the car. So we actually have in our front splitter, we have brake cooling ducts that come in and cool the brake ducts. So now we're cooling the disc better, we're cooling the pad better, which is giving us longer pad life, it's giving us longer disc life, and then we went to a 35 millimeter disc. So with all of that being said, we're probably going to improve our cost by 75% on our front brakes. Okay, so little things like that really help out. We have certain situations where the driver can do a lot for us. We want to obviously give the passenger the best possible lap that they can. We want to deliver the most excitement that they can have, etc. But there are certain techniques that you can deploy while driving that nobody would even notice. How do you apply the brake? How do you get on the gas coming out of a turn? You know, do you simply just drift it everywhere? And you can tell the drivers who pay for their stuff or have a good relationship with who pay for their stuff versus the ones who just don't give a shit. Sometimes it's fun to drive with the people who just don't give a shit. I'm not gonna argue with that. But at the same time, we look at it and say we want to deliver the most excitement, but we also want to take care of the car, right? Because we want this car to continue driving for the next 1,000 people this year, right? So there's a lot of things that we can do to control our costs. Regular maintenance, regular inspections also control costs. You see, if we wait until a rear hub breaks, maybe it's on a Saturday with 30 people lined up to go in this car and you've got 10,000 in revenue sitting there waiting to lap, but your rear hub breaks, right? And now you have to try and put those people in the McLaren? No, because you can't do it. Maybe you have to put the people with the other companies, right? We've had a very good relationship, for example, with Ring Taxi, where if something was up with their car, we put them in their car. If something's up with our car, we put them, vice versa, we trade. Or if we're overbooked, we send people to them. If they're overbooked, we send them to us. But at the same time, we pay them, they pay us. So for all the taxi companies, regular maintenance saves costs. Because if we have to divert 30 people to another company, well, that hurts the bottom line. So what we do is we change out our hubs, we change out our drive shafts before they're broken. And someone might say, well, gosh, that's cost that you build up. But yes, it keeps our taxi operational. Every 8 minutes that our car is sitting in the barn during TF, this car, for example, is 269 euro that could be lost, right? That's the way we have to look at it. So our cars need to be always operational and on track. Parts supplies. Buy an inventory of parts to get you through the year. Okay, you saw that we have 1,200 laps that we can get out of a rear set of discs on the McLaren. We have enough brake discs in stock right now to do 3 years. You can see that if something happens, we have the stock, but the stock is also very costly. You know, so we have, not only do we have these costs of operation, we also have inventory costs. You can't operate these taxis with one set of tires. We've got more of these wheels than we know what to do with. You know, you've got them on backup, you've got them ready to go. What happens if one gets bent? What if you have to do an avoidance and you do have to take off the road a little bit and you dent a wheel? You've got to be ready to slap them back on and go. So there's a lot of things like that that we have in hand so that these cars can run. Yeah, and that's really, I think, the bottom line about what do these cars cost. Hopefully that sheds a little bit of light as to why the taxis run the way they do and why they cost what they do. And it wouldn't be wise to run them much cheaper. To be honest with you, it would be nice to run them at $3.99 because then you have a profit margin. but I think that would reduce your market tremendously as to who can join in with you.
And the same goes, people have sometimes said, oh, maybe you should run like a cheaper car that you can run for cheaper, but I don't think it's going to be as exciting.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think the thing that you need to look at is if you look at our license, employees, and driver's cost, right?
The fixed costs.
Those fixed costs. If I take a car like, well, I thought how cool would it be to run like a Cupra TCR and get it street legal or something like that and cram 4 people in it, you know what I mean? And you run that for $179 a lap.
Yeah.
Well, how does that work when you already have $160,000 in fixed costs? Now your $179 a lap just covers your fixed cost at 1,000 laps. Now you have to do 2,000 laps to be as profitable. So you can see that there's different ways to look at it. And to be honest with you, I would rather get in this right here with 4 bucket seats, harnesses, intercoms, the whole bit, as opposed to any other slower, less costly solution.
More affordable.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Random fact, a lot of people comment when they see a picture of this car in the carousel, how many splitters do you go through per year?
That's actually a good question. 1. Yeah.
And actually, that splitter is now on the M4.
Been repurposed.
Yeah, it's now on the rental car.
So this splitter that was on here, it's carbon fiber splitter, was actually in really good shape after the year. Just the bottom lip was starting to scrape on it and starting to separate slightly, but that was no big deal. We took it off, we repaired it, and we put it on the M4 rental car, which looks badass on there. Well, maybe you can show a picture in this. Now we're just putting the brand new one on this car. So that's actually quite a nice feature, if you would. That as low as the car is, the splitter really doesn't get any damage.
So very good suspension setup by Team Sherman.
Yeah, in fact, the suspension is perfect. You see pictures of this thing just set down with fully loaded and the back fender just to the lip on the tire, and it's like just completely perfectly set up that it meets every limit in every situation without rubbing, without scraping, without bottoming out. It's right on the money.
Well, thank you very much for this amazing insight. I can definitely say it's pretty much exclusive. I cannot think of any other company who would just like...
I don't think that anyone would want to share that, but I can tell you also that our costs are by far the highest of any company.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no doubt that no company's costs come close to what ours are to run a taxi. Well, maybe a manufacturer because they do more, but the private companies that are doing it, their costs don't come as high. A manufacturer that maybe puts new brake discs on every 20 laps or new tires on every 20 laps, their costs are absolutely out of control, but they're not looking at costs. They're looking at promotion and sponsorship.
Well, I hope it gives you an amazing insight and incentive to book with us, because again, if you will have to do it for yourself, if you're gonna still say like, well, I'd rather take my own car out, it's not really financial responsible.
You could talk to the people that own like a Shermer M3 or a McLaren, and if they go out and take their car out, their costs are higher because they don't have the team behind it.
The volume of operation.
Exactly. So when we operate in volume, we can get better costs. Like I said, this year we're going to get better pricing on all of our products, and maybe at the end of the year we'll go back and tell you how it went. These are our pricing, what we dealt with for last year, and this year our prices will be better just from volume purchases, know-how, knowing how to prevent certain issues and certain damages, and that'll benefit us as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm excited to see how this develops, and for you guys, stay tuned. As always, subscribe, like, share, book a lap, because they're getting booked out pretty quick. And well, check out the link in the video description, in the first pinned comment, you know it. And if you have any additional questions, let us know, either here or on social media. And see you at the Nürburgring. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.